This is the sound that made rock and roll rock and roll. Without it, no Hendrix, no Floyd, no Zeppelin, no Nirvana in the 90s, and I can list names for weeks. Hi, Fiai, my name is Gianluca, and today we are going to talk about my latest obsession, Fuzz. It all started in 1962 with the release of the Maestro FZ1, and during that decade everybody wanted one because of the song Satisfaction by Rolling Stones. Of course, many brands saw some business opportunity, and they all start making their own version. But at the end of the day, we can divide fuzzes, almost all fuzzes, in four major groups: 2, 3, and 4 transistor fuzz and octa fuzz. So the 3 transistor fuzz is the first ever invented with the Maestro FZ1. But the most iconic one, and even better sounding in my opinion, is the Tone Bender by Sound, and on its variation Mark 1, 2, 3, and 4. I know there's even an in-between version, but I'm gonna talk about it in the next chapter because it's up to transistor fuzz. In 1965, Gary Stewart Hurst designed this pedal upon the Maestro FZ1. Story goes that guitar legend Vic Flick, the man responsible for the James Bond theme, brought an FZ1 to Hurst and requested the sustain to be increased. This is no doubt the sound of the British Invasion, with players like Page, who even Paul McCartney used it on bass for some tunes. And I can see why the sound is powerful, punchy, that can cut through every mix with tons of sustain. And every time I play one of these type of fuzzes, it reminds me of those legendary records that I think and hope that we all know and love. Try that sound today, I highly recommend The Bender from the series Legend of Fuzz by JHS. It is an exact replica of a Solar Sound Tone Bender Mark III without the issue and the price of an original old unit. The Fuzz Bender by Keeley, not the most original name I know, but it's really an interesting fuzz because it has a powerful EQ and some other control that lets you sculpt your tone perfectly. And then Solar Sound is still making reissue, and even the new British pedal company, if I'm correctly, link in the description. What I used here to replicate that sound is the Nettuno Fuzz by Dofix. This is not a replica or something inspired by, but depending on how much gain I'm dialing in, I can mimic 3 transistor fuzz, 2 transistor fuzz, and even 4. Remember that weird in-between model of the Tone Bender that I was talking about in the previous chapter? It is called Mark 1.5, that featured 2 instead of 3 transistor fuzz. But the most iconic one is the Dallas Arbiter fuzz. They are identical, they were released even at the same time. The only difference is that the fuzz face ended up at the ends of Jimi Hendrix. Like Marshall, Vox, Orange, and Ivat were really popular amp at the time, but Marshall is the quintessential rock amp because of Hendrix. That dude had something. Fuzz, by being such a simple circuit, because it just featured a couple of transistors, literally for the 2 transistor fuzz and a bunch of resistance, so the smallest of changes can lead up to the biggest sound difference. Compared to a 3 transistor fuzz, is smoother sounding with more low end, and it has the ability to clean up amazingly well with the volume on your guitar. Let me demonstrate again with the Nettuno Fuzz. the sound of Hendrix, Eric Johnson, go listen to Cliff of Dover, or Time by Pink Floyd. I think because of this player, tunes and records, we guitar players especially are deeply connected with this sound. A quick Gianluca from the future. If you want a fuzz face, because I completely forget to tell you, Dunlop is still making original fuzz faces, every shape, form, variation, price, whatever you want. Sorry again. Peace. Things start to get heavy, and if you think about the music of the 60s and the 70s, it doesn't make any fucking sense. The most iconic and first ever created is the Triangle Big Muff by Electromonics in 1969, and as we know, Mike Matthews is just built different. He do things like no one else. Legend says that even Hendrix used it, but the sound, in my opinion, is not there, and even the ear don't match up. What is fact-checked is that the Big Muff was used by Santana. David Gilmour, of course, Comfortably Numb is one of the most famous examples of a Big Muff sound, but even the prog rock guys in the early 70s, like Robert Fripp from King Crimson and Steve Howe from Yes. But in my opinion, to listen to the best Big Muff sound, we gotta jump into the 90s. My decades, by the way. This is the sound of grunge, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Smashing Pumpkins, you name it. This is the pedal that defined the term wall of sound, with this enormous low end and super cutting high end, and super good mids, but at the same time is punchy and even defined. I don't know how, but it's fucking good, okay? To demonstrate the sound, I'm using the Honeypot by TC Electronic. Demo somewhere up here, I don't remember left or right. This is a super affordable version of a Russian Big Muff. The Russian Big Muff is just one of the Big Muff variation. But if you want to try all sort of Big Muff variation, there's the Muffoletta by JHS. It is basically a pedal with 9 pedals inside for a reasonable price. And then, of course, Electromonics is still making Big Muff, the newer one, and even some vintage reissue. I had a Russian Big Muff reissue, and it sounded pretty damn good. Demo, again, somewhere up here. Don't get tricked by the name. This is not an octave pedal like the POG or the OC2 from Boss plus a fuzz. It's another thing, and to make it super easy, because it is actually a pretty wild type of circuit, it takes the waveform, it folds it onto itself, don't ask me how, and it makes it sound like an octave up. It is what it is, okay? One of the first examples of an octave fuzz is the Octavia from 1967, if I remember correctly. Story goes that Roger Mayer, the builder and the engineer of the Octavia, found Jimi Hendrix at a club. Again, Jimi Hendrix, that dude had something, gave it to him. Hendrix fell in love with it and ended up playing it until the rest of his days. Another famous example is the Univox Super Fuzz, played by Pete Townsend, and again the pedal is from 1968-67, but keep in mind the fuzz revolution happened between 1965 until 1967, in less than 5 years. Something quite drastic if you think about the music of the time. By the way, to demonstrate that sound today, I have a Behringer Super Fuzz. This is a replica of the Univox Super Fuzz, and man, for $28, here in Italy is 28 euros, sorry, is pretty damn good. opinion, a pedal that was way ahead of its time, because I personally use it to sound like a synth. The first mode with that predominant octave up sound like a Moog or something like that. If you roll down the volume knob, it can sound a little bit glitchy and even Emmonish at the same time. Or if I want to just tear down some stone kidney, I use the second function, which is super scooped and super heavy. But at the same time, I use it to play some 70s like tune, or let's go to the extreme, some textural ambient stuff because of that glitchy quality. Again, way above its time. No wonder why Jimi Hendrix loved it. Let's call it a day. If you this was the video, let me know in the comment section which is your favorite type of fuzz, or your fuzz in general. I cannot decide, because I like weird one, I like classic one, I like boutique one, I like cheap one, I like the one blended with other things. It's a tough choice to decide which type of fuzz is my favorite. By the way, my name again is Gianluca. I'm a guitar player, singer, and songwriter from Italy, and every week I explore sounds and boundaries of music here on YouTube. So if you like this kind of shit, subscribe to the channel. You have no excuse. There's the PayPal link for donation if you want to support even more, but you can just leave a like, a comment, or subscribe. And until next time, remember, you are lucky, my man.